Today we go back to Tiwanaku, close to the border of Peru, to the site Acapana. Acapana is a very intriguing site. The structure is buried underneath a large layer of soil, as you can see on this footage. This suggests Acapana to be very ancient. Is that true? And if so, can we prove this? And how can we prove this? Again, as you will see, orientation is the key to date ancient structures correctly. The crust of the earth has been unstable in certain periods and very stable in other periods. These periods of instability, that is what we call ice ages. And this has proven to be very confusing for geologists. As you might know, geology assumes plate tectonics as the only force to change the face of the Earth's crust. But that appears to be a mistake. There is up to this day not a single geologist who has been able to explain the ice ages, the waxing and waning of ice ages. There are of course some geologists who claim that the Milankovitch cycles were responsible for the coming and going of ice ages, but apparently they had never made any significant calculations on this claim. But that of course is only a side note. Today we are talking about Acapana, the slight clockwise orientation of Acapana and the most probable use of the site. Here on this photo you see a view from Acapana on Kalasasaya. On top of Acapana you will find all sorts of intriguing stonework with beautiful straight cuts and drill holes in them. Today Tiwanaku is located at a latitude of around 16.5 degrees below the equator on the southern hemisphere. Here you see minus 16.55 degrees. Here the map of the town of Tiwanaku with three separate sites: Kalasasaya, Acapana and Pumapunku. We measured the orientation of the three sites. Kalasasaya approximately 0 degrees, oriented to our current south pole, our current spin axis, pole 1. Then Acapana oriented plus 3 degrees, a little bit clockwise, oriented to pole 2. And then Pumapunku slightly more clockwise oriented, plus 3.7 degrees, oriented to pole 3. What is very intriguing about this pattern is that the differences between the three sites in orientation matches the differences between pole 1 to pole 2 and pole 2 to pole 3. And it also means that the differences in age between Acapana and Kalasasaya is immense, about 100,000 years. The red dots give an indication of the movements of the poles. So pole 1 is for Kalasasaya, so to speak, pole 2 is for Acapana, and pole 3 is the pole to where Pumapunku was oriented. Because Acapana was oriented to another pole, pole 2, that means that the latitude was slightly different than today. So the latitude from Tiwanaku as a town to the South Pole and the original latitude of Acapana to its own pole, pole 2, is slightly different. It was approximately 18.5 degrees. Here you see the formula for this. We are able to recalculate the solstice angles for Tiwanaku, which is slightly different than today. Here you see a sort of artist impression of Acapana. The stairways you are looking on are originally westerly oriented, and the priest of this temple looked into the eastern direction of the rising sun. And when there was a solstice moment, it was visible from this platform. But of course, this temple or this pyramid doesn't work anymore today because of two reasons. This structure is a little bit clockwise oriented, 3 degrees, so it makes it very inaccurate to measure the solstice angle. And on top of that, the latitude was changed, and these two things change radically the use of this temple. And that is one of the main reasons why archaeologists are simply groping in the dark about the use of such structures. Here you see the table from our website. We have identified 5 proven poles, and there is still a theorized 6th pole. Pole 6 is still unproven, but pole 1, of of course, is our current pole, is easily proven. Pole 2, pole 3, pole 4 and pole 5 are all proven poles. Acapana was oriented to pole 2. On Antarctica, it is very, very ancient. And you see that here. It is most probably between 130 and 155,000 years old. And that is the reason why it is covered in a thick layer of soil. There are some people who suggest a catastrophe brought a lot of mud, but that is very unlikely because the site is located at an altitude of 4,000 meters, let's say 13,000 feet, and it is even not very close to the sea. So it is more likely that age caused this thick layer of soil and not a mud stream. The reason why the South Pole, why the spin axis on the South Pole was much more stable than on the Northern Hemisphere, you see this red ring of expansion on the seabed. This is called the isochronic seafloor map. Then this relatively equal ring of expansion causes Antarctica to be quite stable. And in the same time, of course, it causes massive pushes on the Pacific and on the Atlantic and on the Indian Ocean. And this push in combination with a high eccentric orbit causes the North Pole to migrate heavily and in the same time keeping the South relatively steady. Now we can of course calculate the solstice angles for this typical situation of Acapana, and that is based on the period in which we suspect Acapana was built, between 130 and 155,000 years ago. During this period, the tilt of the Earth was between 22.4 and 24.3 degrees, as you see here in this graph. So we have two different tilt angles, and we both have to input them in the formula to calculate both solstice angles. And we see here it is between 25.7 and 23.7 degrees. And you see here on this reconstruction drawing of Acapana how these angles, you see this in a sort of bend, how these angles fit on the pyramid. And that of course is an almost perfect match for the situation. So we have the orientation of plus 3 degrees is explained. How this pyramid was used is explained. So the likelihood that the age of this pyramid is between 130,000 and 150,000 years old is quite high. In the next video we will go to Pumapunku and look what we can say about this ancient structure. Thank you for watching and see you next time.